Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Steve Harney, the founder of Keeping Current Matters, with our August 2023 monthly market report. And boy, is it jam-packed, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of headlines. There are a lot of confusing headlines. And what we have to make sure, we have to make sure, is that we're realizing how confused the consumer is. Because if the consumer is confused, that confusion can turn into concern pretty quickly, and that concern can turn into fear pretty quickly, and that fear could turn into paralysis pretty quickly. So what our job is to make sure that you have the answers to a lot of the questions that are in your consumers' heads so that you can remove the confusion and make them feel comfortable. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, there's a lot of confusion out there right now. And remember, in times of uncertainty, people follow the certain. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you understand what's taking place, and you don't understand it well enough just to understand it. You have to know it well enough and understand it well enough to explain it. That's a different level. At KCM, we oftentimes talk about you want to go at it not with the heart of a salesman, with the heart of a teacher. Well, the teacher understands the subject matter they teach, and you have to understand this subject matter. For example, the Consumer Survey of Home Prices. This is a survey that's done every month where Fannie Mae asks consumers, do you think prices are going to go up over the next 12 months or down over the next 12 months? These are the December numbers from 2010 through 2022. And it's very obvious what we see there. Going into this year, last December, heading into this year, 2023, it was the highest number of people, highest percentage of people, consumers, that thought prices were going to go down over the next 12 months. That's because we had some crazy headlines. So we came into this year with a lot of concern by the consumer, maybe even fear. And those headlines were examples like this. A 20% home price decline, 7 forecast models are leaning crash. Here's where the other 13 models have the 2023 housing market going. If you look at the little red box, that was on December 7th, 2022, Fortune magazine. So in December of 2022, just a couple of months back, what winds up taking place is Fortune was saying we might see a 20% home price decline. Well, no wonder people were afraid. And let's take a look at how deep that fear was. Here is that same consumer confidence survey going all the way back to June 10th. The only reason I didn't bring it back into 2006 and prior to 2006, they didn't take the survey back then. The first survey they ever took was June 10th, and that's where we start this. But what we can see in the aftermath of the housing crash, there were a lot of people concerned prices were going to continue to fall. Then things settled out as we got to 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17. And obviously, in the spring of 2020, when the pandemic hit, everyone thought prices were going to crash. All right, so there was a lot of fear there. And we helped you, KCM, we helped you get through the consumer fear at that point in time. Then things settled down a little bit as we were going forward. It was still a little bit rocky, with the pandemic and what's really going to happen. Then, all of a sudden, with all of this talk of a repeat of the 2008 crash, toward the end of last year, look at those red numbers. They dwarf what happened in the aftermath of the housing crash, and for a length of time, they dwarf the pandemic fear. People were very, very, very concerned. So you can see that that red bar is falling as we go through June, the last survey taken. But what we can see here, ladies and gentlemen, it started in January 37, the same number we had December, and we are getting better. But again, ladies and gentlemen, that number, 26, is way too many people are still concerned that prices are going to depreciate. And we have to turn that around. And I want you to understand what that 26% represents. That's 1 in 4 still believe that house prices are going to depreciate. So if you're sitting at a table with 8 of your family for dinner, 2 people sitting at that table think prices are going to fall. If you go to, a barbecue, a neighborhood barbecue, and there are 80 people there, 20 of them think prices are going to fall. If you walk out of your house of worship this weekend, and there are 400 people in the house of worship walking out the front door with you, 100 of them think prices are going to fall. That's a lot of people. We have to make sure that we get the word out there that prices are not falling. And the only thing we know, facts shatter fear. Facts shatter fear. We have to have the facts. We have to share the facts to get people, less afraid of what's going to happen with prices. Now, the reason that all those crazy headlines were occurring last fall and winter was the fact most economists thought that people would panic and put their home on the market. They said, well, with mortgage rates rapidly rising, with the talk of a recession coming, people were going to be afraid of 2008 all over again, and they were going to rush all their houses to the market. And that oversupply was going to cause a challenge. As a matter of fact, Bill McBride talked directly to that. Just recently, he put this out. As inventory picked up sharply in 2022, I adjusted my outlook in October 2022 and wrote house prices 7 years in purgatory. I noted that a 10% decline in nominal prices now seemed likely. He talked about we were going to be in a depreciation state, minor, but a depreciation state for 7 years, and the prices might drop 10%. But then, that's what he said then. This is what he just came out with. However, the inventory surge in 2022 was somewhat of a head fake. Some potential sellers quickly listed their homes, probably remembering what happened with house prices in the 2006 to 2011 period, but that surge ended pretty quickly. Let me graph what he's saying. The gray, light blue, and dark blue lines are 2017, 2018, and 2019. There is a seasonality to new listings coming to the market. It builds into the spring, and then coming May, it starts to drop off and then drops off more dramatically when the winter months come. That happens every year. That's nothing to be surprised at. There's nothing to be concerned about. That's the normal seasonality of new listings coming to the market. But the break point is normally May. You see that black dotted line coming down? Last year, the red line, we saw that it didn't all of a sudden break in May. It continued for a month upward. When economists saw that, when market analysts saw that, they said, oh my God, this is going to shoot up and shoot up all the way to the right. We're going to have a tremendous amount of new listings coming to the market. At the same time, interest rates are going up, which is going to really squeeze demand. A high supply, a low demand, prices are going to come crashing down. The only thing is, that didn't happen. They went up for 1 month, what Bill McBride in the previous slide talked about, a head fake. And then what happened? They dropped like a rock. Lower than they were in 2017, 2018, and 2019. We didn't have too many listings. We had too few listings. Now, the other thing that a lot of the economists said was, well, with the recession and the end of the moratorium, we're going to have a tsunami of foreclosures. So they assumed there was a whole bunch of sellers going to be putting the house on the market, and there were a whole bunch of foreclosures coming. Well, they got that wrong too. This is foreclosures in the first 6 months of each of the years. So what we can see is we're nowhere near 2008, 2009, 2010 numbers. We're not anywhere close to that. We are a little higher than last year because the moratorium's over. And you will actually see headlines saying we're 185% above 2021 numbers, the number of foreclosures. And that quote, that headline is not inaccurate. We are 185% above 2021 numbers. So I can't say they're lying, but what I'm saying is they're not giving you the proper perspective. Because in 2021, there was a moratorium. It was almost impossible to foreclose on a house. So of course we're way up over that 65,000 number, because that's the lowest number going all the way back to 2008, and probably long before that. We're going to get back in foreclosures to normal numbers, somewhere around 500,000, because every year things happen. People lose their jobs, people get sick, people get divorced and they don't handle it well. All right, so what winds up taking place is, we're going to have normal foreclosures like we did in 16, 17, 18. All right, this is the first half numbers. We're going to get back up to those numbers. All right, and then the full year numbers are going to be somewhere around 500,000. That's the average. But that's going to be okay. That's what happens. Now, it's a terrible thing for those families, especially if they're children. I'm not saying that's a good thing for those families. What I'm saying is a normal number of foreclosures coming to the market is not going to crush the market. If anything, right now, we need the inventory. That's not the way I want to get it. And then people are saying, well, with a recession coming or the fear of a recession and things happening, they're even saying now people are not paying their mortgages. I don't even know where they're getting those numbers or those facts. People are paying their mortgages. As a matter of fact, if you look at the most current, seriously, delinquency numbers, people are 90 days, 3 months payments behind, those numbers are falling like a rock. There are more and more people paying their mortgage, not more and more people not paying their mortgage. So they just had that way off. So what actually did happen in prices last year and going into the end of last year? Well, in order to do that, before we get there, talking about the delinquency rate, May's overall mortgage delinquency rate matched the all-time low, and serious delinquencies followed suit. Furthermore, the rate of mortgages that were 6 months or more past due, a measure that ballooned in 2021, because they were in the moratorium and so they didn't pay their mortgage, has receded to a level last observed in March 2020. So we're back to normal numbers before the pandemic. And going back to Bill McBride, he called the crash in 2006 or 2008. He was right on top of that. He received a lot of accolades for knowing that was going to happen. And this is what he said in November of 2008 about foreclosures. Foreclosure activity is already at record levels. Yet as prices fall, foreclosure activity will probably continue to increase. The activity will be literally off the chart. That's what he said back then. This is what he said last week. 2 weeks ago. There will not be a foreclosure crisis this time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's over. But what is going to happen with prices? Well, first of all, let's take a look back to last year. What actually happened with home prices in 2021? I want you to see, this is the 48-year average, not seasonally adjusted, how much prices, according to Case-Shiller, how much do prices actually go up every month? And there's a seasonality to it. As the home buying season comes into play in the spring, prices go up more substantially. Then as the year goes on, they don't go down. There's no red bars there. But the level of appreciation decelerates. And that's a big difference between those two, ladies and gentlemen. There's a big difference between depreciation, and deceleration of appreciation. Houses in October, November, December still go up, just not as high to the same level as they do earlier in the year. Well, let's take a look at last year. First, I'm going to minimize this graph so we can add things to it. That's this graph minimized. Well, if we take a look at what happened in 2022, we blew away normal appreciation. The first month, we were 10 times greater than normal. The second month, we were more than 6 times greater. The next month, we were more than 4 times greater. The next month, we were 2.5 times greater. Of course, we couldn't sustain that. So what winds up taking place is, at the end of the year, there had to be a correction, and there was. That's normal. That's what happened last year. It wasn't a pretense that prices are going to fall 20%. We had too high appreciation at the first half of the year, and it got corrected in the second half of the year. So what's going to happen this year? Well, we already have a feeling for that. Let's go back to the appreciation numbers. This is normal appreciation. And let's take a look at the 48-year average compared to what's happened so far this year. Now, we use the resale numbers so that you can see it, the repeat sale numbers. So it takes them a little long. So May is the last numbers out. The June numbers will be out in a couple of weeks. All right? These are the last numbers available. But what we can see is we were below normal appreciation in the first month, below normal appreciation in the second month, and much closer to normal appreciation in the next couple of months. So what we can see, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge last year was pretty simple. The challenge last year, we got crazy at the beginning of the year, and we made a correction, and now we're going back to a more normal market. And that's not me saying that. That's not KCM saying that. Let's take a look at all of the major price indexes. Case-Shiller, FHFA, CoreLogic. They all show the same thing. Now they look at slightly different data. FHFA only looks at government, sponsored loans. Case-Shiller looks at more loans. So the data is a little bit different, so the numbers are slightly different. But basically, ladies and gentlemen, it's the same trending. We had too good a first half last year. We had a correction, and now we're coming back from that correction. And if you don't believe those three, let's keep on going. Zillow, Black Knight, and Freddie Mac all say the same thing again. Appreciation was too high last year, and it was adjusted, and it's coming back the other side. Now, some people are saying, well, there's still places in the market, like Austin, Texas, or Boise, Idaho. Those places are really still suffering. San Francisco, San Diego, or whatever the case may be. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that some metros have not caught up to where they were at the height of June of last year. I get that. But let's take a look at the overall picture, not just like the last year's picture. Because if those people didn't sell, and if they bought a house a year ago to sell it right now, that was just a bad move no matter what happened. Because they had all those costs of buying the house that they would not be able to recoup. But as long as they stay in the house, I think things are going to be okay. What gives me that feeling? Well, ladies and gentlemen, here are the 20 cities that are looked at by Case-Shiller. And this is what happened since March 2020, a little over 3 years ago. Again, remember, these are May numbers. All right, so percentage change. Look at it. People are saying, oh, the poor people of Phoenix. No, I get it. They're running through some difficult times right now. But they just came off 3 years that whatever house they owned went up over 50%. Tampa's up 63.8%. That appreciation that they rode over the last 3 years has given them great wealth. Did some of these cities have to give back some of that wealth? Yeah. But they're on the return back now. The only city that's not showing month-over-month appreciation right now is Phoenix. They're down 0.1%. I guarantee you, next report, they'll be in the positive too. So the worst is behind us, and over the last year. And if we look to the 3 years prior to that, and by the way, this includes the last year. If we look at the 3 years prior to that, ladies and gentlemen, buying a house made all the sense in the world. And if you bought one last June, people say, well, what happens if they bought it in June at the height? Well, I looked it up. They also got, if they bought it at the beginning of June, they also got a 5.04 mortgage rate. Their monthly expense is less than if they bought one right now. They didn't get hurt. And if they stay in the house, they'll get back the equity they've lost. But as far as their monthly mortgage payment is concerned, they actually did better off buying last June at the higher price and the lower mortgage rate. So a lot of people throwing fear around, I don't know if the fear is there or should be there. There is no doubt that the housing market has reignited from a price perspective. Firming prices have now fully erased the pullback we tracked through the last half of 2022. They're talking about nationally, and lifted the seasonally adjusted Black Knight home price index to a new record high in May. So what is Andy Walden saying? Hey, ladies and gentlemen, from a national perspective, we've already got everything back. Now, again, I know there's some cities that didn't. But let's take a look at how far some people were off. And I appreciate the people I'm about to show you. There were a whole load of people that said we were going to fall 20%, and they disappeared. They're not coming out with forecasts now. So I appreciate these people saying, this is what we said, and this is how we're going to correct it. The original forecast from December of last year is in that middle column. The Mortgage Bank Association said prices were going to go down a little less than 1%. Fannie Mae said 1.5%. Morgan Stanley said 4%. AEI said 15 to 20%. Zillow said they were going to go down a little less than 1%, and CoreLogic said they were going to go up 3%. Now look at the last column. MBA says, well, they're going to be flat. And I bet you with the next one, they're going to be up a little bit. Next forecast for the end of the year. Fannie Mae went from 1.5% decrease this year, then now we're going to see a 4% appreciation at the end of the year. Morgan Stanley said we're going to lose money, we're going to break even. Look at AEI. They went from we could lose 20% to now we're going to go up 6%. That's how much confusion there was in the market last year. Zillow said we're going to lose a little less than 1. Now they're saying we're going to have a good year. We're going to be up 5.5. And CoreLogic affected theirs also to a more positive number. But remember what's going to happen. Remember the appreciation, the seasonality of it. What is going to wind up taking place as we go through the rest of this year, as the month-over-month number isn't as high as it was the month before. Not saying houses are losing value. They're not just climbing at the same number they were the month before. You know what the headlines are going to say? Prices are coming down. They will be wrong, and they won't care. We have to get out in front of this. It's crucial that we get out in front of this, ladies and gentlemen. Crucial. So, what do we know? Exactly what I said. Deceleration of appreciation is not the same thing as home prices are depreciating. Again, there's no red bars here. We didn't say depreciation. And we might, by the end of this year, might have 1 month that's a red bar. I'm not saying that's not possible. All I'm saying is when they see appreciation decelerating, they're going to say prices are falling, and that's not true. Those headlines are going to drive fear. If we can get out in front of those headlines and let people know, we'll be much better off. And the reason that I know prices are going to be okay is look at the inventory situation. People say, well, inventory's up. Yeah, it's up this week. But let's look at it same week in 2022 and the same week in 2019. There's a shortage of inventory and a resiliency in the buyers. Even 7% mortgage rates hasn't appeared to scare them. We need listings, ladies and gentlemen. We need them badly. There are simply not enough homes for sale. The market can easily absorb a doubling of inventory, from Lawrence Young. But we have to help the people, ladies and gentlemen. In the seller's market, sellers often think that they don't need an agent because anyone can sell a house during a favorable period. They see those lines outside the open house. They say, there's plenty of buyers out there. I could sell it. However, it's important to remember that agents don't sell houses. KCM members definitely don't sell houses. Rather, they facilitate, they consult, and they protect their clients through the process. That's who you are. You're the best of the best. Let's help these people understand what's taking place. Mortgage rates. Here's the projections going forward. If you look at the left-hand column going down, we start at the fourth quarter of 2023 and go to the third quarter of 2024. That's the forecast. We're already in the third quarter of this year, so the forecast in the next 4 quarters. And we gave you the Fannie Mae, the Mortgage Bank Association, and the National Association of Realtors. Then we averaged all 3. And what we can see is everyone seems to think that by the end of this year we'll be somewhere close to 6. And then as we go through next year, we're going to break the 6 number into the 5s. And that's going to be crucially important, ladies and gentlemen. I really think that the sellers that are locked in because of their mortgage rates, they have a 3 or 4% mortgage rate, they're not going to take a 7. They might take a low 6. But I think the magic number, and Zillow just came out with a survey showing this, once we break into the 5s, things are going to get crazy. And that's good news. And why are they thinking this? Well, part of the reason that mortgage rates are up right now is because of inflation and what Chairman Powell is doing in regard to, the rate hikes. Now, it's not a direct, correlation between what he's doing and the 10-year Treasury and then the spread of the 10-year Treasury. It's a very complicated equation that I've been trying to figure out for 35 years and still haven't been able to figure it out. And obviously, with all the crazy projections that are out there, no one's been able to figure it out. But this is what I do know. What's taking place is the reason Chairman Powell is doing what he's doing is because he's trying to drive inflation down to the 2% number. That's the number they're comfortable with. Once we hit 2%, then what's going to wind up taking place is he's going to back off. Once he backs off, then we're going to see the 10-year Treasury probably lower a little bit, and we'll see the spread lower a lot. The spread being the difference between the 10-year Treasury and the mortgage rate. That difference is usually under 2. For the last 50 years, it's been under 2. Or if average, well under 2, I should say. All right? But right now it's over 3. But if that 10-year Treasury comes down and the spread comes down, we'll be in the 5s. And that's exactly what we're looking for. Now, some people have asked me, some members have asked me, Well, Steve, we're close enough. We're at 3. Look, we went from almost 9 to 3. Can't he just pull the plug down and stop the uncertainty of what he's going to do next? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason for that. I'm not trying to defend anyone. I'm trying to just let you know the reason he's thinking it. If we look at the gray circle on the left, what we could see is back in April of 1772, inflation skyrocketed all the way up to 12.2%. The Fed did what the Fed needed to do in raising rates, and it dropped tremendously. It dropped to about 5%. They thought that was good enough. However, they didn't lower it enough. So as soon as they hit that number, they backed up, they took their foot off the gas, and inflation shot back up to 14.6%. That's what Powell is afraid of. If he stops too soon, if he stops short of the 2%, it's just going to shoot right back up, and what we're in now, the malaise we're in now, is going to continue. Ladies and gentlemen, as far as I'm concerned, let's bring it to 2 and get it over with. And ladies and gentlemen, understand, and I've used this analogy in a couple of different places, so I apologize if you've heard it before. You don't own a McDonald's, you own an Apple store. See, a McDonald's, if it snows and the roads are backed up and people are all stuck at home, the McDonald's lose their business. They don't do breakfast, they don't do lunch, they don't do dinner. They lose that business. Because those people don't not eat until the snow melts. They continue to eat, so they're just not going to do it at McDonald's. An Apple store is different. If someone was going to go buy an iPad and all of a sudden the snow came and they were stuck home, well, once the snow is shoveled, once the snow melts, once the roads are cleared, they're going to the Apple store for that iPad. Apple doesn't lose one sale because of a snowstorm. But what does happen is once the snow is cleared, they get the normal sales of that day, and they get the backup of the snowstorm. Let's assume it's 3 days. The 3-day backup of people all of a sudden hitting their store in the next couple of days. So they get a rush of business. They don't lose any sale. Same thing with us. Because of the craziness right now, that's not going to stop people that just had a child from buying a house. It's not going to stop someone that just got divorced from selling their house. None of that's going to happen. We're going to get all those sales. They're going to come in a rush to us as interest rates start to come down. Let's be ready for that. Be patient for that. And I do think it's going to be soon. Here's the inflation rate versus the 30-year fixed. And what we can see, the inflation rate is in blue. When the inflation rate comes down, mortgage rates come down. Well, the inflation rate just dropped like a rock. And ladies and gentlemen, I think the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is going to do the same thing. Can I guess when? No. This is what I've learned. In 35 years, nobody knows exactly when. But we can look at the indicators and say, it's not that far away, because I think that's true. But the single most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that we can't be afraid. We have to be out there. We have to explain to the consumer what's taking place. We have to take the fear out of the market. We have to make sure that we understand that. Facts shatter fear. Let's go out there and give them the facts. That's crucially important. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a survey, and I will repeat this survey for the rest of the year. It was done by 1000 Watt, a good friend of mine, Mark Davidson, is one of the founders. This is the percentage of homeowners who desire to sell their home within 6 months, who are more inclined to do so after speaking to an agent. All right, let's go over that again. If they spoke to an agent, 2 out of 3 are more inclined to go ahead and put their house on the market. You know what that tells me? We have to speak to more people. We have to make sure we're in front of as many consumers as we possibly can. I don't care if you do that with doing a video on TikTok. I don't care if you do that with a mailing. I don't care if you do that door knocking. I don't care if you do that putting up a table out during, county fair. I don't really care how you're in front of the people. You make that decision, what your business plan is. All I'm saying is up it. Get in front of more people. The way we're going to turn this thing around is exactly that. Well, that's this month's deep dive, but I have a couple of announcements to make just so that you know. We're really getting a tremendous response to our deep dives on Monday morning. You can look at the replays if you'd like. We've covered prices in a much deeper way, the last 2. This past week, we covered mortgage rates in a much deeper way. We did it for a few minutes here. We did 30 minutes on it, and you can look at these replays. All right, and that's important. And the next one, if you're listening to this on the 10th, the day that the monthly market report comes out, the next Monday, the 14th, we're going to be doing it on the whole foreclosure situation. Why there's no crisis coming. So look at the deep dives every Monday. Look for the promotions of them so you know what the subject is. And if you're interested in it, please join us. And the deep dive, this is what we know. Most agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening. In the deep dive, we're looking for the great agents who want to explain what's happening. They want to be able to explain what's happening. That's important. And as I mentioned, Monday the 14th, which is directly Monday, if you're listening to this on the 10th, if you listen to it past the 10th, with the day of its release, you might have to look at the replay. But the foreclosure crisis, what is really going to happen? Now I want to give you a quote and then introduce something. The quote is pretty simple. This is from Ivy Zellman, an icon in the business. We would never suggest that a real estate company could be successful without fully understanding local market trends. But ignoring macro trends or assuming they do not carry the same weight would be an equally erroneous suggestion. In our experience, the most effective industry leaders appreciate the appropriate balance between the two ends of the spectrum. You need to note the national trends and what's happening as a nation, because that's affecting consumer confidence and everything else. The headlines on the big papers, the headlines in CNN, the headlines on all the TV shows. You need that. But you also needed all the local trends. And for whatever that is now, 16 years, KCM has been very, very, very good at delivering the national trends and what's happening as a market, and we try to help as much as we possibly can. I'm very proud to announce, extremely proud to announce, that the second half of Ivy Zellman's quote, we would never suggest that a real estate company could be successful without fully understanding local market trends. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we heard you, and KCM has now introduced KCM Local. And KCM Local, if you haven't jumped in, jump in, and you can go right down to your zip code. You can pick the zip code you want to look at, and you're going to get great information on what's taking place there. It's really super important that if you haven't yet, that you want to take a look at that, because what they've done is nothing short of miraculous. They've taken what we're doing on a national basis, and they're doing it locally. You got local data, national insights, powerful visuals on both, and it's all in one place. You don't have to go back and forth to different places. It's all in one place. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do. This might be the biggest game changer that I've seen in the industry in 35 years I've been in the industry. Don't miss out on this. It's really something sensational. And the reports back on the original release are just absolutely phenomenal. All right, that being said, let's wind this up with a 90-day plan. Number one, make new listings out of your old listings. Crucially important. The first place you can find a new listing right now is go visit all your listings that haven't sold yet. Have those tough conversations. Hey, listen, we have to do something with the price. We have to get easier access. You have to paint your son's room that's all black. People are kind of weird about that. Whatever those things are that you have to have those tough conversations. Remember when you took the listing, you promised those homeowners that you do everything in your power to get the house sold. Having a tough conversation with them is within your power. We're competitors' expired listings. Ladies and gentlemen, listings are expiring right now because the agents, when they originally took them, didn't do a good job. Get out there, work those expired listings. We know those people want to sell. They're already on the market. Let's have some tough conversations with them about what they need to do to get the house sold. 3, set up your listing campaign for September 1st. Ladies and gentlemen, more and more listings are going to come on the market as interest rates, as mortgage rates start to look like they're moving in a certain direction. Get out there, downward. Get out there and get a real good listing campaign started for you starting in September 1st. Contact 10 people every day and ask them what they think of the market. Don't contact and say, well, this is what's happening and that's what's happening. Let me tell you this and let me tell you. Just ask them. Say, listen, I haven't talked to you in a while. I was just wondering, what do you think is happening in the market? Let's start those conversations. Record at least 4 videos. Ladies and gentlemen, videos is the thing right now. Make sure you do that. And don't be satisfied with knowing. Push yourself to understand. The deep dives are important. If you're not coming on Monday mornings, take a look at what the subject matter is. If you think that's a subject matter you want to know more about, get involved in the deep dives. Well, that's the 90-day plan, ladies and gentlemen. If you go ahead and do that over the next 90 days, you're going to be prepared that when that snow melts, when they clear those streets, when those sellers start come running into your office or calling you on the phone or answering your direct mail, you'll be ready. Because remember, that's going to be a double dose of business. You're going to get the business you would normally get that time, plus the pent-up business right now. Crucially important. Ladies and gentlemen, take the national stuff we just gave you, combine it with the local, and be the local expert. Again, you asked us for this for 16 years, and we finally delivered. Take advantage of it. Until next time, never, never forget, keeping current matters.